to do that, jacked up. But what I'm going to do now, before I put all that stuff together, I've got all that stuff here. The shocks and the airbags are here, the new bolts. But I need to do some rust repair, and not just patching the rust, but I want to also seal it up. So I'm not putting the bags and shocks on yet until the rust repair is done, because I want to have good access to everything that I can get to. And when I put that stuff back on, it's going to limit my access. This is one hole here. It's right over the tag axle airbag. I'm going to put a patch about so big right over that. But down here, where this webbing is welded to this part of the beam, there's still some areas that I got a lot of it cleaned out with the needle scaler. But if you look in here, you'll see there's still a little lamination of rust on top of it, so I'm going to use an air chisel to get the rest of that out. I'm going to MIG weld. You cannot MIG weld over rust and dirt unless you really crank your heat up high. And I'm not using my new MIG welder. My new MIG welder does weld better, but it's a little bit smaller than the old one, and the old one is a big monster right here, and it has a huge roll of wire in it that's not going to be used if I don't use it up on projects like this, where I can just crank the heat up and go on ahead and let it rip. And I'll save the smaller one for more sensitive work. Anyway, I'm not going to do the actual work so much on video. I'm going to show what I'm doing. So I can see this lamination of rust, and I've knocked an awful lot of it out. But I see this. What I'm going to do is air chisel this out of there as much as I can, and then I'm going to build this up in here a little bit with the MIG welder right here on the bottom edge, and then I'm going to grind this down. This is all, I used a needle scaler on this. I'm going to grind this down to have fresh metal to weld to, and I'm going to cut out a little plate of steel and put over that, and I'll weld that on and then re-weld the bottom of this. But first I'm going to weld this up on the bottom first, and then I'll put my plate over that. The back side, I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I might just trim some of this out of here, because this is kind of bent inwards where I was air hammering on it. I might trim some of that out with a torch to get it flatter. I don't think I'm going to have room to weld to the inside of this from the other side, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'll just put some rust treatment on it and maybe some undercoating. But I don't have to last 40 years with this. The trailer's already 3 years old, and I just need it for a few years, 5 years, whatever. And I'm going to do the same type of thing on all this where this rust is built up like this. See how that's all swollen up with rust? I'm going to knock all that off of there, and I'm going to just weld that up. This little thing here, we'll put a little patch on that, and this one here, we'll put a patch on that. I've got a place right here on top of this control arm, or whatever it would be called. I'm just going to weld and start building on top of my weld and seal that up, because that's got a curved shape to it. I'm not going to try to cut out a patch for that. I'll just weld on top of my weld and keep going until I get to the top there to cover that up. I'm starting out by using a stick welder on this because it's so rusty. I don't think I'm going to get much bite with a MIG welder. So I'm going to start out with a stick welder just to get a base. I ran one rod across here. Looks like I should have started up here, but when I got the hood on, I can't really tell where I'm at. So I'm going to start another rod up here, come down into this one. I'm going to chip this off first, and then I'm going to continue from here on down. So that's just to get my a base started so I can weld to it with the MIG welder. I don't have anyone to hold the camera, and I'm not going to be able to get this on tripod and stuff, so I won't be able to videotape the actual welding. Sorry about that. I'm filling in a hole here. I said a while ago that I was going to, I say a while ago because it's probably been 20 minutes, half an hour. Anyway, I'm just going to run a base across here with a stick welder to burn through the rust and have something to build on with the MIG. But I'm having trouble with that. Oh yeah, the base goes on fine, but there's so much rust that I can't get out on this paper thin. This stuff here, it's thicker up here, but down here it's really thin. And it's rotted out and I'm burning holes through it. And I got one little tiny hole left to fill right there. I don't know if we can see it with the camera or not. I'm trying to. I can see it, but anyway, it's I got that to fill, and then run a couple more passes up there so that I can get on to something a little bit thicker up here. And I think I'm just going to continue to do it with the stick because it's just so dirty. I don't think a MIG is going to work on it. And we're doing the same thing over here. I'm still building up a base there. It still has flux on it. I haven't chipped it yet. I just ran another bead across there, and I'm working my way back towards, because where this rusted out, it went in about a 1/4 inch or more back that direction. So I'm just going to continue to build that up as I go along. I tried using that big Lincoln MIG welder, but I was having too much trouble with it. It's not working good. It's pretty bad, and my new welder is a lot smaller. It'll run 035 wire, but I don't have any for it, and it's getting too late in the day for me to put everything up and go and get a roll of wire. I'll do that in the morning when it's cold out. And anyway, I just cut out my first patch, and to make it fit over a piece here, and I'm going to take a grinder and cut this off down here, and there's a swollen point here. I'm just going to knock that in a little bit. It's coming out this way. The patch wants to kind of rock on there. I'll just hit that with a hammer, knock it in a little bit, take a grinder and touch some of this up a little bit so that the piece fits a little flatter, and grind the paint off. Got my patch ready to put on. I'm going to use the stick welder for now, just to at least tack it, and then tomorrow I'll finish welding it when I get some wire for that other welder. So got everything fairly well ready to go. I got my new little welder set up now to run that 035 wire. I had to go and find a roll of wire because I didn't have one for it. What I had in here is this little small 025 wire that I can use on real small lightweight work. And I got this little adapter box I made. It's got a 110 outlet on it as well, so I can have that use a short extension cord, or just plug in a grinder or a light or something into this, and it works off of the 220 cord. It's just something I made up. It's got a breaker on it to shut it off. Actually, I just bought a small single shut-off breaker box, is what I built the thing in. I cut a hole in it, put this outlet in that the original plug to this machine has on it, and plugs into that, and then I put my pigtail on it to use my regular extension cord that I got plugged in over there. Got it all set up. I got it set up now to run that size wire, and according to the meter here, we're setting it at 3/16 thickness, and I think that's probably a good average Well, I'm going to go ahead and try to weld this thing on here. This is a good machine. This Lincoln, what is it, a 210 I think? I forgot. Yes, it's a Lincoln 210 MP. It's a good machine. When I used it last anyway, it is new. I just bought it. This thing here is a plasma cutter. That's a different machine. But what I don't like about it is that it's basically just a bench top welder for doing little jobs on a bench, because the leads are really short, and it's just a hassle getting the thing to the job. I really think I don't really do enough welding to justify it, but I'd really love to have another machine like that. Either have that one working right or get a replacement for it. So I can just roll the heavy-duty one out, and it has long leads, and I don't have to have it right under my feet while I'm working. Well, I can't do this on camera, but I'm going to go on ahead and start welding that patch on there. Got that on, but I got one little hole on top here that I'm burning through. Little thin spot up there, so I'm going to go on ahead and I don't need to hear from any trolls about thin spots, because the only way to fix it is to replace the whole trailer with a new one. Well, that's $60,000. If someone wants to buy me one, that would be lovely, but I'm just going to patch this one up to keep out of trouble with DOT, and it's still a very strong trailer. It still holds I've hauled heavy 80,000 pound coils on it, so, and it hasn't broken or bent anything on it. So I know the trailer is worth patching it up and keeping it. So I'm going to turn my settings down, if I remember how. Let me figure out how to do it then. Okay, I turned my settings down, and I got it on set for 14 gauge. It's pretty thin. Let's see if we can fill that hole like that, because I couldn't fill it when I had it turned up to whatever I had it, 5/16 or something, I don't remember. Okay, I'm back on this the next morning, and I got those patches on there, and I got them cleaned up a little bit. Well, they're smooth. There's no sharp edges that I cut my fingers on when I wipe over it or anything like that. It's all pretty smooth down. But over here on this long line here, I've already ran a few rods. I'm going to run some more down behind this, so that when I put a plate down over this, all the way down the length of this here, that I'll have something to weld to. And I'm using the stick welder because I got to burn through some garbage, and the MIG welder doesn't burn hot enough to get through all that garbage. So I'm using the stick welder to get something to weld to with the MIG welder, and then all the way down to here. So get past this where it's separated here, get past that probably an inch or two, and then however wide of a piece of scrap I find to put on there, I've got several pieces. We'll put a piece on there, and I'll probably have to put another piece on top of that scrap over this one here. But that's what I'm doing now, just running one stick after another back in here until I got a nice place to start MIG welding from. I think I have this base built up enough with the stick welder now that I can go ahead and finish it with the MIG welder, some of these low places, so I don't have to trim the patch plate to fit all of this. I'll try to get it all level, the same height or close to it. Like there's a low area here. I can build this up with the MIG now that that's got clean weld on it, and a little bit over here and some here, maybe some over here, and try to just build that up, because the MIG welder welds a lot cleaner, but it has to have a clean place to weld or it won't work. It won't weld at all. It'll just make a mess. And that's where you need the stick welder, because it burns a whole lot more amps. It burns right through all that garbage and the garbage floats away. So I got something to work from now. I got my base there now pretty level for the most part all the way across. So I can cut out my patch. I'll have to grind the paint off up in here, however high the patch goes. Got my patch cut out and I got it straightened out, flattened out as best as I could, and I was just sliding it down inside these rails and just pulling on it and pushing on it until I got it straight. It wasn't really crooked, just curved a little bit. So I got it tacked on and I kept pushing it on until I got to the last corner where it was sticking out a little bit. I just took this wire brush and I pressed real tight on it, put my last tack on it up there, and down here I meant to say. I'm going to go ahead and start welding it on. I guess I'll start on the bottom and start building this up, because you can probably see a little bit of daylight through the other side there in places. That's why I had to build that up a lot anyway. And I took a grinder and cleaned it up and got it smooth, and hopefully got something good to work with there to finish welding that patch on. Got that patch done as far as welded in. Just got to clean it and paint it now. Got another one to do there, and then one back there on this side. I think that's all I got to do on this side. Looks like we got a hole right there too. Got some on the other side though, a little bit. Got all my patches done on this side. That big patch right there I didn't put on, but the welding was really messed up on it and it had some holes through the side of it. I just cleaned that one up a bit, put that patch on next to it. And that one, and this one, and there's a couple there, and there's one up on top behind that spool that you can't see from here yet. That one there. That's all the patches I got on this side. Figure out which way to go with the zoom here. I'm going to put some rust treatment on there. This is that, what do they call it? Rust converter. You spray this on. You got to clean it up, and a little bit of rust that's there. It turns into a primer, but I'm still going to put a catalyzed primer on over it when it's all done. But the catalyzed primer I have is not one that I mix up here. It's in a spray can, and the bottom of the can has a button that you got to push this thing in there, and it releases this activator inside the can, and then you shake it up real good after that. Anyway, I'm not going to use it, of course, until I've got everything I'm going to spray it on ready, because once you activate it, you have to use it up. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this stuff on there and get ready for the next stage.